Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 17 of the PowettPlay Podcast. I'm Jordan Shannon, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host, Kieran Powell. How are you, Kai?
Good. Lovely Caribbean in the background there. How are
Oh,
you?
look at that. He's just amazing. If I turn this camera around, you would see 5 degrees. It's this grey, wet, dark. And all I keep thinking to myself is it spring's round the corner. And I keep thinking, season's going to start here soon. And it feels a million miles away right now that we've got anything that looks like remote warm temperatures or anything that looks like sun. But that looks amazing. So that's your home ground? Is that Warner Park?
Yep, this is one of our. This is the stadium.
Nice. And obviously your training facilities are not too far away.
They're just up the back here, the nets and stuff. So we've had our session obviously this morning. Being the home team, we get to practice in the morning, the day before the game, and then the away team will practice in the afternoon. So the home team gets, I guess, a bit of added rest.
Right. And what sort does a practice session look like for you?
Uh Depends. It's varied over the years. Right now, obviously, um, I don't try to do too much. Like I sort of know what I want to get out of my preparation. So not big on too much physical training or anything like that
Right.
leading into the game. So
Right.
specific, like covering what I want to cover. Obviously, I expect bowlers to approach me in a certain way. So I try and cover, I guess, what I think the bowlers are doing, try and cover as many options as possible so that I've ticked all the boxes and I go into the game ready to
Right.
face every eventuality that I think they'll throw at me and be comfortable.
That's really interesting. So you sort of give your bowlers a bit of a game plan for yourself, whether that be something that you want to work on or something that you want to see from them.
Yeah, but more so, it's more based around me specifically.
Right.
I mean, as I said, I know what they'll do, so I try and prepare for that. Specifically with some coaches and some sidearm throws, etc., etc.
Right.
And then I and sort of have an extra hit in terms of like what I want to do. Once I get in and try and put myself in a position of dominance, to I guess
Right.
command and try and get a big score. So it's very specific, very detailed, but not too extensive. Not anything overly exerting. Obviously, you want to save my energy for the match and sort of be fresh physically as well as mentally.
Yeah. So what in terms of what you're thinking, like half an hour worth of batting or a little bit more, a little bit less?
Uh, well, we sort of got rained out this morning. So my pair, obviously being the opening pair, was the only pair to bat. So I think I got in maybe half an hour.
Right.
Yesterday, I'd say I got in maybe a 45-minute session. So
Right.
yeah, that's roughly around where I need to be to sort of tick the boxes in terms of, I guess, play against spin, play against pace,
Yeah.
and sidearm drills and throwdown drills, etc.
Yeah. Oh, it's really interesting to hear about how you sort of go about it, really. Do you do much as a team, like fielding wise?
Well, I mean, this is the third game in 3 weeks, so I'm just coming in for my first game, but the guys obviously in the groove of things, and you need to, I guess, preserve as much energy as possible. So it's not been a heavy fielding week this week,
Yeah.
because it's only 3 days between each
Yeah.
game. So again, trying to conserve as much energy as possible with the weather as well. It's quite hot, especially given this time of the year. It's not normally this hot, so guys going into the third game in 3 weeks want to conserve as much energy as possible, and so it's not been, I guess, too strenuous in terms of additional fielding or conditioning work or even the workloads on the bowlers in the nets.
Yeah.
So it's managing yourselves as best as possible so that you can get through another week and perform at a high level still.
Oh, cool. And when you say about temperature, what temperature are you talking at the minute there?
I think it's like maybe 30 degrees, 28. No, it's actually not 30. It's like 26, 28. But obviously, being in the Caribbean, like especially being in St. Kitts, it's a relatively small island. Well, not relative; it's a very small island.
But yeah, I remember you saying
So
actually. Yeah.
Yeah, so you've got the sea breeze coming in from all angles. So it's 26, but it's not very humid. It's very cool at the moment. The humidity was quite intense yesterday, but
Right.
today it's been okay.
Oh, nice. And have you managed to see much of the 4-day championship stuff so far? And has anyone impressed you?
Uh Not really seen much of it. Obviously, I saw the match that the Leewards played
Yeah.
last. I saw some of it. I think maybe the last 2 days or something. Obviously, Mikhail Louis getting 2 centuries in the match.
Yeah.
Second last match. So that was really impressive. Obviously, Jimbo doing Jimbo things, getting another 5-wicket haul. But I haven't really seen much of the other games per se.
Yeah.
With Trinidad starting tomorrow, but I do know, and I've been playing against these guys for
Yeah.
quite a number of years. I do know the players and I guess what to expect in general. What gets tossed up on the day, then obviously I have to combat that on the specific day. But in general, I have an idea of what they'll be trying to do,
Yeah.
and they have what I'll be trying to do. So it's just a matter of who can be patient for long enough to come out on top.
And do you see that as being that term patience there? Do you see that as being the big thing in winning the game, really, is who's got that patience?
Yeah, definitely. Especially in 4-day cricket, longer format cricket,
Yeah.
it's understanding that you have a lot more time than you think, and in general, matches don't generally go the 4 days, so
Yeah.
players generally leave a lot more time out there than they think they had.
Yeah.
Rushing to try and get a score, feeling under pressure when pressure is, I guess, something that is self-imposed. When you actually look at situations of the match, and at the end of the day, you look at how much time was left, you realize that you had a lot more time, and there was
Yeah.
actually a lot less pressure than one would have thought. So, yeah, coming in fresh. I'm gonna try and give myself. I'm always big on, especially the first game of the season, giving yourself that extra time
Yeah.
to try and get a score, get your season off to a positive start and building on that. So that's what it's going to be about for me. Obviously, coming into the team and the team coming off of the back of a win, I think that I have, I guess, people around me that have been playing cricket that will allow me to, I guess, play a longer game in terms of getting myself in and being able to contribute.
No, I'm looking forward to watching. I know we discussed in the last pod, obviously, about a little bit of the reasons for why you're not playing, but I'm really looking forward to tuning in. I watched a bit of the game over the weekend. I watched Jimbo bowl. I thought he bowled superbly well in that second inning. Well, I thought he bowled well in the first innings, but in that second innings, he caused a lot of trouble. So I'm looking forward to seeing how you guys go. And yeah, I can't wait to see you back in action.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Nice weather. I mean, as I said, apart from, I guess, 10 minutes of rain today, it's been beautiful weather. So
No.
looking forward to shouldn't be any weather interruptions for the rest of the week, I hope. It's scheduled. It's looking good.
It definitely looks good. I can guarantee that. Did you manage to see any of the third tests between India and England?
I try my best not to watch Bazball, to be fair, but I did see, like, I got snippets of the highlights and stuff from each
Yeah.
day's play. Yeah.
I think, obviously from my perspective, I'll have my opinion to the to hear now is that I just was a little bit disappointed in the fact that you've closed day 2 with Ben Duckett. I think we obviously 1:30, I think, overnight, and you come in a situation of I wouldn't say England were on top in any way really, but in a position where they can put a bit of pressure back onto India, and they just didn't seem to go about it in that right way. This Bazball, this aggressive form of cricket at times, I just feel like we're letting ourselves down from a game management perspective, where we're just not necessarily taking some real key opportunities within games. I know that in the Ashes in the summer, there was certain parts of the game we just didn't treat in that. Sometimes defense is the best form of attack at times, and sometimes you just got to be. I don't know, really. Obviously, your opinion is completely more valuable than mine, but I just feel at times they just don't seem to. We spoke about this numerous times, obviously, but the execution aspect to it, like, is about being positive, but sometimes like the decision-making process doesn't seem to make sense, and it just leaves England a little bit exposed at times.
Um, well, I mean, you know my take on
Yeah,
the whole phenomenon, but I wonder, and I guess obviously, you being an England fan, I'm gonna pose the question to you. Do you think that it's the style of play is a cover up for, I guess, inefficiencies of the team, or do you think that they truly believe that that is something that can work? Because, as I said to you, I think it's the success of it is predicated on playing on flat pitches.
yeah,
As soon as there's pitch or conditions that offer anything to bowlers, whether it's spin or pace, then you've sort of seen the results. And obviously in India, um, the pitches are quite good for sort of day 2, day 3,
yeah,
and then after that, the game changes and spin comes
yeah.
into massive way. So, do you think that it's a style of play predicated on inefficiencies of I guess the team, the batting unit or the bowling unit?
I think so, yeah. And I think that again, this is just my opinion, and sometimes I think that people who play aggressive at times in certain situations, it's the easier thing to do in terms of, like, in the heat of the battle, to grind it out, to sit, to be defensive and get behind the ball is a harder thing to do than be positive and stuff. And I think that England, I think you're right with what you're saying, and I noticed when I was watching Jaiswal bat, he was 18 off 50 balls, I think, give or take. And then all of a sudden he kicks on. So if he gets his 216 off, based on a run of ball. So naturally, as you go through your innings, your strike rate will increase as you get, you're seeing the ball more and so on and so forth. So I get that. But I think England have got to go of understanding of getting yourself in. And sometimes in understanding that you've got, I don't know really how I'm trying to word it, but yeah, I think you're probably absolutely spot on with what you're saying in terms of that's just the way they're playing because of the way that the batting lineup is. But you've also got to look at somebody like Joe Root. Is Joe Root? I know there was analysis that came out. Everybody's average has increased under Brendan McCullum. Some have gone up from 20 to 35 in the likes of Ben Duckett, but Ben Duckett came in when he first made his debut at a difficult stage for English cricket. He's now coming into a bit of a different environment. You've seen a spike. Joe Roots has gone up by 2, I think, which is obviously, in the grand scheme of things, nominal. But is it impacting certain players more so? Possibly, yeah. Possibly. I just think that it's this. I mentioned what I'm wary of is England as a whole here is that I know you'd laugh at this statement, but people are like this entertainment aspect. So everyone's like, "Oh, England are great to watch," and it's entertaining. And there was a comment made where about chasing down we'll chase down whatever. And Jimmy Anderson made a comment about in the second test about having there was X amount of overs left and England needed for whatever it was, and we'll do it. We'll chase that in 60 or 70 overs. I think England are if you're not too careful here, are becoming like when all said and done with this Bazball, like, oh yeah, I tell you what, they were great to watch and it was entertaining, and the way they went about it. But actually, how many series did they win? Oh well, they drew with yeah, they got beaten in the Ashes and they got beaten in India. I think they drew with New Zealand and stuff. Great teams and top teams were remembered by being in number one of the Test Championship or winning away in India or winning away here and there. ultimately England haven't done that just yet. And I think that sometimes you've got to try and strip it back to actually winning, doing what you need to do to win a game of cricket. That's my little rant.
Yeah, I just think that, I mean, players like Crawley and Duckett, obviously it serves them well.
Yeah.
The style of question, etc. But I think that getting those types of stats, you sort of squander in it by having the likes of a Joe Root and a Johnny Bairstow play in such a fashion, because Johnny Bairstow is already a positive guy, and then obviously Joe Root is probably the only person left in Test cricket that can possibly ever get past Sachin Tendulkar's tally in runs. He can do it, and there's no one else that's going to do it in Test cricket.
No.
Where he is now and the volume of games England play and his age, like it's all sort of lined up for him to sort of do it. But I just think that, you know, it doesn't have to be something that everyone in the team subscribes to, or everyone in the team necessarily tries to play in that manner. If you get off to a good start with let's say a Duckett and a Crawley, then everyone can play, I guess, a lot more freely, because you're already ahead of the 8 ball. You've already got an amazing foundation, as opposed to, I guess, guys reverse scooping Boomer to second slip and that kind of stuff when you're one of the best players that the game's ever seen. Okay, fair enough. You go in the positive route, but is it really necessary? Like, do you really need to do that? Give your skill set and give your record. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Again, his stats have increased by 2 runs per innings, but what benefit has that given you? Like 2 runs per innings, as opposed to what team can get from him if he plays the way that he's capable of playing in a series like this, because he's a really good player of spin. You know, the last time India went out to India, he scored a double century in the first Test match. He's got a really good record against spin all throughout Asia. You know, so it's not something that he's not capable of, or that he can't. I just think that he needs to sort of go back to playing his way, and I think that they need to encourage him to go back to playing, I guess, what's his way, and like everyone sort of fitting in where they fit in within the whole realm of the way that they're trying to play, to enable the team to have its I guess, best chance of winning consistently.
Yeah, there's obviously a couple of things I wanted to mention there. One of them is like, when relating it to football ever so slightly, when a football team has their best player, some of them relieve the defensive duties. So say, for instance, when Ronaldo was at United, whether he played on the left-hand side or the right-hand side, his defensive duties were probably, well, he didn't have any defensive duties, and that put a lot of pressure on the right back or the left back, depending on where he played. But the team knew that he had the capability to win a game by just doing what he does. And now, going back to sort of Joe Root, is that they can have game plans for, like you're saying about Duckett and Crawley. But I think what you touched on about Root, just leave Root to do what Root does best, and he will have an impact on the side, whether that's being, you know, he's a great batter, no question about it. He'll go down as England's, arguably one of England's best ever to do it. But I think we should just leave him to play how he wants to play in scenarios. He's played enough Test cricket. He's an experienced enough to know when to put pressure on, to soak up a few balls, and that's what he's earned as being a top player and playing the volume of Test matches he's played, from getting that experience. And with that in mind, there you're saying about him going up 2 runs per innings. One thing I picked up on, and this is obviously coming from the press, but various bits and pieces, there was quite a lot of talk of Bumrah missing the 4th Test as just resting him, basically. And I thought that if England just composed themselves a little bit better in that second innings, where he bowled a lot more overs, I'm not saying, potentially have won the game by chasing the score, but if England kept him out there a little bit longer and he bowled more overs, he could have then missed the 4th Test. Now, a Test team without Jasprit Bumrah is a weaker side. I get that they've got a lot of top players to bring in, But an India side without Jasprit Bumrah is ever so slightly weaker. So England could go into that fourth test. Yes, it'd been turned over. It might not have been the deficit that it turned out to be, but they would have. I do still believe England would have been beaten, but they might have gone into that fourth test without Bumrah. They have to bring somebody else in. It looks likely now because he didn't bowl that many overs that he's probably going to play the fourth test. The win that if they then go the way India see it could potentially be right. We win the fourth test, we win the series. He can then miss the fifth test. We'll just rest. We'll rest him for that. I think something like this. Again, we keep talking about the Bazball theory, but there's more to it than just scoring. In an aggressive manner. There's this game management and also series management. I think that we could just be a little bit smarter at times to have an impact on other bits and pieces, really.
I mean, you look at India, you're still missing Virat Kohli, who you want about a series and a manner of play which would have gotten him up to play.
Yeah.
He would have definitely had a big series here. There's no doubt in this type of play and stuff, and in your face, he would definitely want to have a huge market. So, I mean, that's a huge factor. And I think that people can now understand and appreciate what he brings to the game and what the game misses when he's not there.
Yeah.
And you look at Rahul as well being injured for the last match or last two matches?
Yes.
After having scored well in the first game as well, and his experience and what he brings to the table as well. You also look at Rishabh Pant, who was absolutely flying in Test cricket before he unfortunately had that car accident. So I mean, if India and India are still ahead of the series, so let's sort of take that into context and understand that if India had the A list players, what a series it would have been for them if they were, faced with Bazball and really pumped and excited to go on, I guess, because it's a thing around the world now. Everyone wants to conquer Bazball, isn't it? This style of play that England are taking around the world, and everyone wants to be the team that conquers it or stops it or puts an end to it. And so obviously India's strongest team would have wanted to send a very strong message, and they're still sending a strong message because you look at, I guess, Jaiswal, who's been absolutely phenomenal. Like, he's got 3 Test centuries, 7 matches, 2 double centuries, and his lowest Test century is 171, which is absolutely ridiculous. You've got a Shubman Gill, who people are basically saying he looks like he's struggling, he's out of form, and he scored a century and a 91 in 2 of his last 3 Test matches. Rohit Sharma has just come to the party, and he's going to be looking to finish off the series in a big way. Jadeja casually jumps from batting at 7 or 8 up to 5 and scores a century and then takes 5-wicket haul. Ashwin hasn't really had an impact on the series, if you're going to be honest. In a series in India, Ashwin normally does severe damage to most touring teams. He hasn't had an impact on the series, and he's going to want to have that, especially having experienced his own personal family issues as well. So, I mean, it's a series that's, I guess, primed for a lot, and I don't know how much it's taking out of England emotionally, because you see, no matter what happens, like, the media is always basically just talking about the English team, or putting a spin on, and a positive spin on whatever England does, whether good or bad. So it's going to be interesting next 2 games, obviously being England's second largest defeat in Test cricket history, and India's largest victory in their Test cricketing history. So it's going to be something that, I guess, India want to build on, and England want to bounce back from. So it's going to be a very good watch. It could be a very strong competitive game the next game, or something that capitulates really quickly.
I think you're absolutely spot on with that last statement there, in terms of, the next 2 games. It could be something that capitulates big time, or it could be something that it could be 2 really good Test matches. I think that my only concern a little bit is you don't really see people. There's a couple of question marks over Joe Root's form, and 100% it's just purely form. and obviously Johnny Bairstow's form in the middle, obviously in the middle order. And my concern a little bit is there's not many teams, or sorry, not many batters who seem to, in India especially, sort of kick on from the fourth and fifth test. You're in a rut of form, because it's obviously an incredibly, at times anyway, quite a testing place to play cricket. So if you are in that rut of form, it's quite tricky to potentially get going in the series in the fourth and fifth test. And that's sort of maybe a little bit where, I know I mentioned it last time, is that after the second test, when they went to Abu Dhabi and they had this no cricket break, would that have been a good opportunity to potentially hone in on a few bits and pieces to go ahead into the third test, and then the fourth and fifth, the third, fourth, and fifth, obviously after the break. But I think that it's going to be intriguing either way, and I hope that England don't capitulate, because I think they need to figure out a way of whether it was against India in India or whether it was on home soil this coming summer. During these situations where things just aren't quite going together, they've got to somehow work out a way of pulling it round, and whether that's adapting the style that you mentioned there, with letting Joe Root do his thing, or whether that's however Brendan McCullum and Ben Stokes go about it. But I think ultimately they've got to figure out a way of winning games and winning series, rather than winning sort of passages of games, like we spoke about before, in terms of like it being such a long, a test match being 5 days. There's no point England having a great afternoon and then the next morning, they don't get it quite right with the ball, and then they're batting in the afternoon, and they 5 down, close of play. They've got to figure out ways of winning games, not passages of play.
Yeah, I don't know how easy that's going to be, as you said. As seasons tend to go on, like trends and patterns and passages of play tend to start repeating themselves over and over. And it's like, if you're in a rut, it sort of becomes a place where it becomes difficult to get out of that rut, and then the style of play is not necessarily conducive to consistent for a player that's out of form as well. So it's a lot of things that aren't necessarily stacked in favor of, I guess, a batter or batters that haven't been scoring heavily coming back into form, but they are experienced and high quality players as well. So it's not out of their capabilities, but it's going to be difficult. It's going to be tough. Again, I see series being ended up 1. I'd be very surprised if there's any change. I mean, because you look at the England bowling as well. I think India are pretty much getting used to the new phases in terms of the spinners, with Hartley. Maybe they bring back in Bashir, the off spinner.
Yeah, I think
Ahmed hasn't really had much of an impact.
No.
Probably Mark Wood and Jimmy Anderson are going to be rested for this match, so that's 2 new seamers. Who are the seamers on the bench? Will they have an impact like these 2 guys? Probably highly unlikely. These are lots of things that you take into consideration, and it's just all stacking up in India's favor.
No, we'll see how that goes. But speaking of challenging series, I'm really looking forward to the series between New Zealand and Australia. I know that there's 3 T20s, I think it is, first, and then there's a 2 test match series. But I just quickly wanted to have a chat with you about that, because we spoke last week about Kane Williamson. Absolutely, he's in some serious form, as is Rachin Ravinder as well. But I'm looking forward to it, because you've got 2 batters there who are flying, but then you've got that 4-prong Australia attack, which is firing as well. So I'm looking forward to seeing this clash, and looking forward to seeing, who comes out on top in what potentially could be a little bit of a seamer-friendly conditions in New Zealand.
Yeah, it's going to be a good series. 2 of my favorite batters to watch, Kane Williamson and Steve Smith. Both on 32 test centuries as well. that's a bit of added extra incentive. Kane Williamson coming up to his 100th Test match, him and Tim Southey, which should be the match. But no, it's always good when Australia and New Zealand play.
Yeah.
Obviously, being close to each other, the rivalry is just a natural rivalry there to see which team gets the better of which team. They don't play each other quite often, strangely enough, especially in New Zealand. So it's a great opportunity for New Zealand, who have been playing Test cricket recently, to continue to build on that form. Australia will want to, I guess, showcase their dominance and continue winning across the format. Being the number one ranked team in the world and obviously World Test champions. You've got some guys there from Australia that be wanting to go over and, I guess, continue to show that they are, players that have helped that team go up to number one ranking in the world. So it will be an interesting series. It'll be a good series to look at for sure. You know that the quality of the cricket will be high, consistent. So really looking forward to that. I think it starts tonight my time around 2:15, which is like maybe 6:15 your time. So really excited about it.
Yeah, I think that 6:10 a.m. over here. The first T20, but I'm looking. Like I said, it's going to be good, and I think that from an Australia perspective, I know that Cam Green got a score in the Shield game. I know we talked about him obviously batting at 4, and how that'll go. So that'll be quite interesting to see whether he still remains at 4 or whether they do swap him and Travis Head. But I know we can discuss that next week. I know we mentioned there obviously about New Zealand coming off the back of a series, and it was quite some good games between them and South Africa, and I think that we spoke about the opportunity that it give some of the South African players to play Test cricket, given the domestic SAT20 that was taking place, and I think that one of the benefits that's probably come out of it has been the opportunity it's given some, and the fact that I thought David Bedingham batted superbly in the middle order for South Africa. And I think he's obviously put a big stake into remaining in the Test side, obviously, once they go on their next tour. And I'm saying that
he did play in their last series before, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he's played quite a lot in the UK as well.
He's already someone that was in the team.
Yeah. And then I know that Neil Brand, who was the captain, although I don't think he scored particularly many runs at with the bat, but he's taken a few wickets bowling left arm spin. So he's obviously given them a bit of an all-rounder potential option as well. So I think there's been a couple of benefits from the South Africa situation to come out there. I know there's a couple there, a young all-rounder, more of a all-rounder, Ruin de Swart. I think he's come out. He's done all right with a couple of half centuries and bowled quite well. So I think that it was a good series, a good competitive series. And I think obviously with the way that Kane Williamson and Ravinder was batting, it could have been obviously any bowling lineup. I think that he was in that that form and that mindset where he's unstoppable at times.
Yeah, I don't like these weekend teams being sent over, I guess, to fulfill obligations by cricket boards whilst they, sort of feast on the T20 commercials side of things. I think that the ICC is going to really have to have a look at, I guess, when and how many T20 leagues are played throughout the year, because it's really starting to affect. I mean, if it affects international T20 series, then that's fine. If you want to play your domestic T20 series and just reschedule that, but Test cricket is already struggling, suffering as it is, and have situations like this, then once it starts to become commonplace where you can just send a second string team, then that sort of takes away, I guess, any value in performances in Test matches, because then it sort of becomes like a second level breeding ground as opposed to
it being the pinnacle.
The best cricketers in the world performing in the hardest format of the game. So that's something that definitely needs to be looked at. But in terms of the performances, you can only play against who's put in front of you, and that's New Zealand did. Kudos to them. They came out their first Test victory in a series against South Africa. So well done to them.
Yeah, no, definitely, definitely. So I just wanted to get your opinion. I know you touched on obviously the Test cricket conflict with the T20 side of things, and obviously the volume of franchise leagues around the world. Do you think it's getting to a point now where there's a slight conflict of overlapping tournaments, which is sort of affecting, players' agreements with them signing in certain tournaments, and then obviously it not working out and stuff like that? Do you think there needs to be a little bit more? I don't want to say organization because I suppose that's not the right word, but is there a way where it can flow a little bit easier potentially to help the players out?
Yeah, well, I think I read something where they're looking to implement a hard cap on the number of NOCs a player can get per year.
Oh, right, okay.
So obviously that's going to include your home T20 comp plus maybe another one or two comps outside. So then players are going to have to start being very selective in terms of, I guess, which leagues they ask for NOCs for. I also saw something that if you sign for a CPL, for example,
Yeah,
and it's overlapping with, let's say, the 100,
yeah,
even if your team gets knocked out of the CPL, you can't then go and sign for a team in the 100. There's going to be a cooling off period of maybe like a month after the completion of that tournament to
right,
sort of,
okay.
I guess, not dilute the true essence and value of T20 leagues with players, playing in PSL today, playing in BPL tomorrow, and playing in ILT20 the next day, which it's not good for brands or brand loyalty because you can't sort of follow teams or players throughout a tournament. So that's something that seems as though it's being addressed and rightfully so. So it's going to make it a lot more interesting as, I guess, players signing to franchises will become more and more of a thing now. If something like that kicks in, for example, a Mumbai Indians signs their players to play for them, and they know that, for example, they'll play in an IPL and a SAT20 or SAT20 and ILT20 plus their home domestic comp, and then they know, for example, that's them sorted for the year, and they can figure out their year and plan properly then, as opposed to guys just sort of playing for maybe 8-9 different franchises around the world throughout the year and just sort of overlapping and not having that consistency from a tournament standpoint.
Yeah. So in terms of from an NOC perspective, do you only require to get an NOC if you've got a contract with a? So I don't want to say, obviously from an English perspective it would be a county, but from obviously your perspective, you would require an NOC from the Leeward Islands. So somebody who, for instance, like Alex Hales, who doesn't have a contract with Nottinghamshire, does he still not require an NOC?
You don't get an NOC from your county or first class team. You get an NOC from your international board.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So you still require an NOC regardless. The only point in which you cannot require an NOC as an active cricketer is if you've retired from international cricket for a period of, I think, 2 years or more. Once you've been retired from international cricket, I think a 2-year period or more, then you don't require NOCs. But as long as you're an active cricketer, you require an NOC from your international board.
Right. So, for instance, Dwayne Bravo wouldn't require an NOC then?
Is he retired?
I don't
know. Yeah, so probably not.
Right. Okay. Right. Yeah. Okay. So that would obviously two things. Obviously, that's the first time I've heard of that. We were discussing that, which is really interesting. There's two sides of I think that's positive. Is that one, it could obviously give people a more opportunity because obviously it would limit the people who are going to obviously every single tournament as such, and obviously then the negative side of things, does that then limit the potential player earnings that we spoke about before?
Yes, but for, I guess, for cricket to be what it needs to be, there needs to sort of be some sort of regulations and some control mechanisms put in place, or else you're just going to have guys popping up here, there, and everywhere, and like it's, I guess, not good for a league. If, for example, as I said, I played today in the CPL, and then tomorrow I'm in the 100, and then the next week I'm in a completely different competition.
Yeah.
There needs to be sort of a limit in terms of movement. I mean, in football, that's where you have transfer windows. So once a guy is moved to a next team, then that's the team he plays for. You don't go and play because you're not in qualification of winning the Premier League. Someone doesn't jump over to the Bundesliga or Serie A, for example.
No, it's a totally fair point, and I'm totally with you on that. I think what you're saying is absolutely spot on, and hopefully, it allows because with that in mind, I imagine that the franchise leagues will look to be a lot more strategic in terms of their planning, positioning from a calendar perspective. So as a cricket fan, I'm not having to choose crossover games. I can watch a franchise tournament, watch it full, watch it complete, and then obviously move on to the next one. Where sometimes at the minute you feel like I'm going on to ESPN and looking at the scorecards and looking at stuff, and you like trying to follow what's going on, and sometimes you can flick on and look at a player who's played in the ILT T20, and then next thing you know he's in the BPL. I think I swear he played there 2 days ago, but hopefully the communication aspect between and we can sort it out nicely. So it's interesting. It is. So thank you again for today's chat. I've just been in awe of your background, and I'm just thinking and dreaming about how amazing that is.
The Trinidad team have just you got Joshua De Silva and Riyad Emirates. Joshua De Silva and Riyad Emirates cursing me, saying, "Why did I come back for this game?" They're not too happy over that. That I could miss any other game. Why did I come back for this game? The sledging has already started.
Oh, brilliant! Well, I'll let you get back on to doing what you do. But thanks so much, and all the best for tomorrow or Thursday. Tomorrow? Whenever it's
tomorrow. Yeah,
tomorrow. Yeah, I thought it was tomorrow. Cheers, Kai. Much appreciated.
Cheers, John.